Hello everyone and welcome back to Circus Tutorials. In today's tutorial will be the start of our club juggling series, and we'll be covering how to start juggling 3 clubs. So by now, hopefully you have learned how to juggle 3 balls, learned a couple different tricks, and are looking to expand and try some other fun things. And so now would be a perfect time for you to pick up a set of clubs and learn to juggle 3 clubs. So when picking up a set of clubs, I get this question a lot. What is a good club to juggle? Well, the best type of club to juggle is, well, one you have access to. Obviously, if you don't have access to it, you can't juggle. So any club will really work. There are a lot of good options out there. The only thing that I will say stay away from is they always have a set of 3 in like a cardboard box. Usually has like a clown on it. Those are very, very hard, so your hands will hurt. So I do not recommend those. Spend a little bit more, get yourself a good club that will last you a lot longer and will be more enjoyable to juggle. So I have a couple different examples here. So these pink ones I'll be using for the rest of the video. These are Henry Delphins. They run between $20 and $30 a piece, I do believe. Some of these numbers might be a little bit off, but I will put the accurate number somewhere on the screen. These ones are the Henry Albatross, both by the same German brand of Henry, and they're a little bit thicker on the end. So this means that when you catch it the wrong way, the skinnier ones are obviously going to be a little bit easier than the big ones. Henrys are just the brands that I enjoy juggling, and they're really just what I had access to, so that's why I picked them up. There are a ton of other good brands out there. There's Renegade Juggling, there's Play, which offers the PX3 and PX4 options, which are very, very popular. And there'll be a link to some websites with different juggling equipment down below. Now this one is an interesting one. This is from my friend Scott Sorensen. His website is superjuggler.com, and these ones are actually made out of foam. I don't know if that'll show up on the camera, but these are foam ended and foam handles. So these are nice when you're first learning, because then if you accidentally catch yourself in the collarbone or hit yourself on the end of your thumb, it's not going to hurt as bad as one of these clubs might when you're starting out. They also are very reasonably priced, a little bit cheaper than some of the other options. So like I said, this one is between 20 and 30. This one's a little bit more, I want to say 25 to 40 range, depending on the decorations. These are in the ballpark of 15 last time I checked. So very reasonably priced. The only thing is they are a little light, which a lot of people don't like. And they have plastic dowels, so they bend a bit. But again, when you're first starting out, the most important thing is just get something that you can learn with. Even if you go out to the dollar store and buy a couple plungers to learn with, all good. Just something to start out with for now, and if you like it, then you can upgrade to more elaborate and expensive props. Now that we have something to juggle, let's get to the tutorial. So if you already learned how to juggle 3 balls, either through my tutorial or another tutorial, that's great. And this is basically going to be the exact same process. It's basically the exact same down to the T, except there's one additional little step. Hi, squirrel. And that is going to be we have to learn to flip it and have to learn to start with 2 in 1 hand. So we'll cover both of that when we get to it. So the first step is going to be just getting used to flipping it. We're going to hold it in 1 hand. The important thing is to hold it somewhere in the middle. A lot of people hold it really far down at the end. We don't have a lot of control there. We actually want to hold it in the middle. So I hold it generally where this tape kind of meets is generally where my index finger usually ends up. Again, there's usually a little bit of difference, but usually somewhere in that ballpark. When we throw, we are going to tip the clubs in just a little bit to the opposite hand when we throw. I'm going to over exaggerate. It doesn't need to be as much as I'm going to show. I'm just doing it so that way it shows up better for you guys at home. You're going to tip it quite a bit, get it to flip once, nice catch, and then we are going to kind of swing, tip it back, and give a single flip. So it's always tip the direction that it's going. So when I throw left, it tips left, throw right, it tips right. The reason for this, and the reason we want to make these nice scooping motions, is because if we don't, we catch it here and throw, it's at a really awkward angle to catch, and it hits me in the forearm. And that gets very, very annoying very quickly. So just focus on this step now of tipping it, catch, not immediately throwing and hitting yourself in the arms. Because trust me, that does hurt after quite a while. In fact, I can't really see that, but it already has a little bit of a red mark just from a single flip, let alone if you can imagine like a triple or something like that. It gets very, very frustrating. So get used to that. Get used to it flipping one time. You want a nice, easy flip. You don't want to just flip it really fast. We want it nice and high because that'll give us more time once we add more. And once we get used to that, we are ready to move on to the next step. So the next step is going to be 2 clubs, 1 in each hand. Same thing with that nice, gentle flip. We're going to cross right when it starts coming down. We're going to toss the second one. 1, 2, bam. 1, 2. So make sure when you're doing this that they're nice and high and try to get them to flip consistently. A lot of times one will do like a 1.5 and the other one will do like maybe a 1 or a double. This is the hard part, is getting nice consistent flips. So practice it with the right hand and then also practice it with the left hand. Whoopsie. Now I showed this before with the ball juggling portion, but if you have 2, grab this, different colored clubs, you can say always start with the same club. So in this case, I'll start with the blues because then it'll force me to start with the right hand, and now it'll force me to start with the left. We want to be able to do it with both hands. And once we can do this without too much chasing it around or moving around, we are ready to move on. And now here's a little additional step that you don't have to do with ball juggling, and that is learning to toss 2 from one hand. Phew. Seems like a silly thing to practice and have to learn, but it really is quite important at this stage to be able to toss consistently from 2 in one hand. It's not like the balls, it happens pretty naturally. This does take a little bit of work. There's a couple different ways of doing it. The way that I like to do it is where I hold on to one, the second one goes underneath that one, and I throw the one from underneath first. So in this case, this one will come out underneath from there. The reason for this is because how the club flips, this naturally will kind of flip up and out of the way. I know a lot of people will start with the classic grip rather than the circus grip. So when it's under, it's a circus grip. When it's on top, it's a classic or standard grip. And then throw the one from on top first. I do not like this way as much because when you throw from here, because of how the club wants to rotate, if this handle gets caught, it's now going to come back towards your face quite a bit. And when I was learning, I was trying that way, and it would just get a really awkward and ugly flip, or it would come back and hit me in the face. So a third way, and the way that I actually learned at first, was neither of these. And just by basically holding the one out to the side, something like that, this is a little over exaggerated, just so that way it really has no way that it can catch that one that's in my hand. So flip, up and out of the way. So go ahead and try a couple of these options. Try the circus grip with the club underneath, the classic or standard with the club on top, and also maybe come up with your own variation as well. Find what's comfortable for you. A good example of this is some people would say, oh no, you have to learn one of the standard grips. Well, one of the best jugglers ever, Anthony Gatto, when he was first learning 5 clubs, his hands were so small that he couldn't hold on to 3 in one hand. So his grip actually started with one on his forehead first and then dropped down into 5. Then he ran into the same problem when he learned 7, and he would have 3 in his hand and then the 4th one would be pinched into his pinkies like that. So don't worry about it too much if you're like, oh, this isn't the way that other people do it. Find the way that works for you. Get used to tossing 2 from one hand. Just have to do that one throw. And we are ready to try all 3. And here we go, all 3, 2 in one, 1 in the other. We're gonna start with the hand that has 2. This is why we practiced just tossing 2 from the hand. And we are going to try to do 3 throws, just 3 for now. So right when it peaks and starts coming down, we toss the second one, and right when the second one peaks, we toss the third one. 1, 2, 3, catch. So at first you want to have them nice and high. It's much easier to take a nice and tall pattern and lower it down than it is to take a low pattern and try to lift it up. So nice and high again, 1, 2, 3, catch, reset. I'd rather see nice and high than nice and low like this. We want to make it easy, and slower is definitely much easier than faster. And so from there, we're just going to slowly start working our way up. From 3 throws, 3 catches. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to try 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And slowly work our way up that way, getting used to adding more and more catches and getting more comfortable and consistent with our throws. So I'm going to show you one other method and way that you can learn to juggle 3 clubs. A lot of people like this method and a lot of people don't. I'm trying to just put it out there. I recommend trying it to find what works for you because each person does learn differently. So we're trying to give you some options on what you like. So you should be able to juggle 3 balls pretty easily. If not, I would recommend learning 3 balls first because balls are much easier than clubs. So if you don't know how to juggle 3 balls yet, check the link down below for the video on how to juggle 3 balls. But if you can juggle 3 balls pretty easily without having to think about it, we can use this to learn clubs. So if we start with 2 balls in one hand and a club in the other, we can get used to juggling just 1 club at a time. So that way we just have to focus on the 1 club rather than all 3, if we just learn with the clubs rather than with the ball option. The reason a lot of people don't like this is because it feels very weird doing 2 throws one way and then another throw a completely different way, and it can throw you off and feel a little bit weird. But again, I recommend trying it. Let me know what you think. So start with 1 club, 2 balls, and then we are going to do 2 clubs, 1 ball. So start with the 2 clubs in one hand and the ball in the other. So kind of flipping what we were doing earlier with instead of 2 balls, 1 club, 2 clubs, 1 ball. So we still have to do the practice to get used to throwing 2 from one hand with the clubs, but that's okay. And then we are going to learn to juggle 2 clubs with that 1 filling in that 3rd spot. Again, it does feel a little weird having a different object in there, but again, it's a fun thing to try and see if that helps working your way up to getting 3 more consistent and keeping that going. And with that, that's going to be the tutorial, how to juggle 3 clubs. Now this does take quite a while to get the flip right, and it can be a little frustrating if you're hitting your fingers and your nails or your collarbones, which unfortunately does happen. It's all part of the process. There's a joke in the juggling community. You can always tell the club jugglers from the ball and ring jugglers because they always have a notch in their nose right here from where they accidentally catch themselves with the clubs. That's not true, it's just a joke, but it does take a while to get the hang of these. But once we do get the hang of these are actually much easier to pass juggle with than with balls, and comparable to rings, I'd say, but I'd still like these better. So we can go over that in a future video as well as you'd like. With that, that's going to be the end. Do all the YouTube things, we do appreciate it. And if you'd like to see future videos on a specific trick or video, leave that down below. We do take your comments into consideration into future videos. With that, my name has been Chuck Clark, and this is Circus Tutorials, and we'll see you in the next one.